And we are up. We are live. Hello, what is going on? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in, for listening. Definitely appreciate you guys listening to what I got to say. This is the Zach Moore podcast. Excited to start with another episode. I apologize for the long wait in between. But let's just jump right into it, man. So a lot has been kind of happening. I mean, currently right now we're a week out from the Super Bowl. And I mean, that's probably the bulk of what's going to be talked about today. I mean, some other news you do have Sean Payton retiring as a football coach. That happened a couple days ago. So there's news. Other news is Tom Brady retired recently. That was a giant story, and that kind of started off with I believe it was Adam Schefter and Jeff Darlington, maybe might have been those two, and they put out a tweet saying Tom Brady is planning on retiring. Now, this was before Tom Brady, quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, probably the greatest quarterback of all time, if not the greatest player of all time. He had not announced his retirement, and many thought if he were to retire, he would talk about it on his Instagram post, Instagram thing, do it on kind of more his terms, either release a statement or do something. But it was reported that he was planning on retiring soon, and that was, I believe it was on Tuesday that dropped, and then on Thursday, I believe, maybe I have this wrong, maybe I have my time mixed up, but a couple days ago now, Tom Brady came out and did announce his retirement. He is no longer going to play in the NFL. And I mean, it was kind of weird how it happened. Like I said, it was kind of put out by people not named Tom Brady first, and they kind of were the ones to put the story out. But so that kind of soiled it a bit. But overall, just congrats to Tom Brady, just on his career. But I mean, in a situation like that, do you wonder, trying to put the tinfoil hat on, do you think it was more Tom Brady's choice? Or do you think he was extremely, if not forced, I'm not saying forced, but if it was extremely likely that he was possibly pushed into this position by his wife, Giselle, who we know has said in the past through various documentaries, I believe on Tom vs. Time, she's like, I don't want you playing. I don't want you to play. I don't want you to see you out there get hit and get hurt. And apparently, I think I saw this on the Pat McAfee show. Apparently, Tom Brady kind of gave his wife an ultimatum, said basically, yeah, we have about 2 years left to go, and then I'm going to hang him up. And he said this when he went to Tampa Bay, reportedly. This is not, I don't know if this is factual. I'm not going to state it as fact, but this is something that I heard. Kind of went to his wife and said, hey, still want to play, but 2 years, give me 2 more years. Let me see if I can win another Super Bowl, possibly 2, and then I'll retire. She says, all right. Shook hands, made a deal. And then the next year he wins the Super Bowl. And the year after that, probably going into that next year, he was like, I feel pretty good. He had a very good defense, big time players, and good veterans on that side as well. On offense, firepower. One of the best passing offense in the league last year. Tom Brady led all quarterbacks in multiple categories. And he just played out of his mind. But they get to the playoffs and they get down to the Rams kind of early, and they're not really able to get back and try and get some kind of a comeback going. They are able to get a comeback, but unfortunately in the end of the game, they are not able to win. And so now you have the Rams going to the Super Bowl, and the beloved Buccaneers are going to be going home, and Tom Brady is retiring. And I mean, congrats to a great career for him. Big question now is, what are the Buccaneers going to do at quarterback? They definitely don't have the draft position or draft capital even to try and move up to a top 10 pick to try and get a really good quarterback. I'm not really sure what they're going to do. There was definitely talks about their offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, to be hired as the head coach of the Jaguars. That was thought. That no longer is the possibility. Doug Peterson has been hired. And just looking at Pro Football Focus talk right now while I'm on this podcast, and I see headline: Trevor Lawrence on Doug Peterson, quote, "Everyone's really relieved we got our guy." Very interesting. And just one more thing to touch on with Tom Brady, and then I'll move on. Is Tom Brady on track to be the primary owner of an NFL team? This is from Pro Football Focus. Good question. I don't think he would want to be an owner where he's super involved. That's just my guess. I've never talked to him. Surprise, surprise. I've never had a conversation with Tom Brady. It's quite fascinating that I haven't. I mean, I lived in Connecticut and he lived quite far away, and just as it comes to Tom Brady being the owner of a team, just to go back to that point. No. I do not believe that Tom Brady wants to go and be a owner. First off, I don't know if he has the type of capital, type of wealth to be able to buy into a team. To maybe he buys in 1% of a team. I don't know if he's gonna go out and spend over $500 million. I don't see him going out there putting that type of capital in. So maybe he becomes a very small owner, but I think in the most case he'll want to enjoy his retirement. Maybe I could be definitely proven wrong about that, but something interesting to definitely look at. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about too was just to kind of touch on this one thing. There's this baseball thing that was put out by ESPN, and they kind of came out with their top 100 MLB players of all time. And now at the same time, the baseball writers, people who vote for the Hall of Fame, for people to go to the Hall of Fame. It was the last year of Barry Bonds to make it into the Hall of Fame, and he was shut out of the Hall of Fame. That means he is no longer able to get into the Hall of Fame, which I thought was extremely interesting. Obviously, when it comes to Barry Bonds, the first thing people are going to talk about is the use of steroids. I don't know all that much about baseball, but there's one thing that I do know. Barry Bonds was extremely good. I believe he's the grandson of quite possibly Willie Mays, I want to say. Something like that. He is related to Willie Mays. However, Barry Bonds shut out of the Hall of Fame. Most likely this is due to his performance-enhancing drugs use. And I don't think that's a reason why you should be kept out of the Hall of Fame. For me, I think I've talked about this multiple times in the past about performance-enhancing drugs. And I saw a clip recently of Mike Tyson. He came out and he said the only sport where he doesn't want steroids is in professional fighting, because you're dealing with hitting people. And pretty much the stronger you are and the better your recovery is, and all the benefits that come with muscle building, being able to be stronger faster. When it comes to physical fighting and physical combat, that's where he draws the line, which I think is a great point, because I believe with him in many of the same aspects. I think when it comes to a sport such as baseball, I think you should give players the freedom to use performance enhancing drugs, whether that's some form of anabolic steroid, whether that's some banned substance. And it should be on the responsibility and the onus should be on the players that if some adverse effects happen to them later in life or something were to happen to them while they were playing, it would be on them. It would be their responsibility. They're making that choice to inject that into themselves, and the onus of responsibility is on the player. I don't think if they were to have an adverse event, unless it was caused by, say, the MLB or an outside organization, I don't think there would be any suing or anything like that that a particular player could do to the league due to a performance enhancing drug. And I think that for a lot of sports, not only does it help build muscle, but for men's sports specifically, you get extra testosterone. I mean, that can take you to a whole nother level, just beyond just building the ability with creating muscle mass and maintaining muscle mass and speed and power and agility. I really do not have that big of an issue with people using performance enhancing drugs. Now, another place where it is kind of interesting that I've talked about before is in bodybuilding and weightlifting. There's definitely an argument to make for people to not use steroids in weightlifting. And on many fronts, I do agree with that. I think it's kind of dealing with on one hand who's the strongest person, and like for the steroid argument, you could possibly say it's a contest to see how much can you lift, how much can a human person lift. And if a person who just eats all natural, no supplements that are outside of the realm of possibilities versus somebody who's juiced to the gills, somebody who is strapped up, and the strapped up dog can do I don't know, 150% of what the other person can do. I mean, I think that person that's juiced up should have the record, but possibly an asterisk next to their name. Because yeah, while they did lift the largest weight, I think should be denoted that they were the highest overall, while the other person would be the highest natural. And then people can see the difference between the two. Be like, oh, I know, I think I know what the difference is between those, but I think there's a way to kind of separate it when you're talking about weightlifting, where you can have separate divisions. Can't really do that for baseball. I don't think, because I mean the best of the best are going to go to some place, and I really don't have that bad of a problem. I believe people should be able to use performance enhancing drugs when it comes to non-combat, non-violent sports. Football is another great example. That's one where I would have to think long and hard about, because if you're talking about an offensive lineman versus a strong safety versus a defensive lineman, you're talking variability on a huge scale. And so that would be one where I do hesitate and I have to think about. I really don't know what I would do in that situation, because that's also like combat sports. But on the other hand, you're playing 17 weeks, and something to help recovery might possibly help deal with injuries. I mean, could help people with bone density. I'm not too sure if that would actually help you get stronger bones, but I think it would be extremely fascinating to find out uh, steroids or performance enhancing drugs versus non in terms of reducing football injuries, because that's a huge issue. I mean, people are tearing their ACLs, possibly adding more muscle mass could put more stress on those joints, and maybe there's more of those, or maybe it strengthens them, or maybe it strengthens the bones so that they don't break. I really don't know. I am not sure. But to kind of bring this back to Barry Bonds, I think it's kind of crazy that he's not in there. Can understand these people in the baseball community where they say he cheated. Um, I can definitely, in many aspects, see the cheating, but I think if he didn't take those steroids, I mean, I'm not an expert or anything, but if he didn't take those steroids, I still think he'd be maybe even the best. I really don't know. He was pretty jacked up, but maybe he just was lifting a lot as well. I don't know. Once again, I'm not an expert on this. I just have more of a thought kind of on the idea of performance enhancing drugs in sports, and I kind of that Mike Tyson thing came up a couple of days ago, and I wanted to kind of throw my opinion out there because I do think it's an interesting dilemma, because for some sports I believe definitely should not be allowed, whereas other sports I think in some cases it can be beneficial for endurance athletes. I mean, that's another thing where you can have uh, people who, when they get tested, they see if there's anything in their system. Now, people may bypass that, and if they do, hey, good, hey, hey, nothing you can really do, man. You can try and stop them, but if they get through, props to them. Props to them, man. But yeah, let's look at Barry Bonds right here. Okay, 14-time All-Star, 7-time National League MVP, 8-time Gold Glove winner, 12-time Silver Slugger Award, career home run leader of 762. He has the all-time record for walks at 2,558. Single season home run leader with 73. And he is also the only player with 500 home runs and 500 stolen bases. Yeah, there were some seasons where he had a stretch from 2000 till 2000. What is this? What year is this? I think this is 2000, 2004. Yeah, 2000 to 2004. He led the league with pretty much each season except for one over 150 walks, which is insane, including one of those seasons where he hit 73. In that stretch, he had 34, 49, 73, 46, 45, 45 home runs. I mean, you start looking at about 1990. I'll just go from 1990 in terms of home runs. 33, 25, 34, 46 led the league, 37, 33, 42, 40, 37, 34, 49, 73 led the league, all-time record, 46, 45, 45 in that stretch, which is ridiculous in terms of the numbers that he put up. Quite frankly, one of the greatest players of all time. Craziness, but I do want to kind of touch on the MLB list top 100, or kind of more read it out. Babe Ruth. Now this let me, before I unveil it. Okay. Okay. Based on career, Okay, let me just kind of read this. I'm sorry. Based on career WAR Hall of Fame status, peak performance, and overall contributions to the game, we selected an initial pool of more than 200 players from both the major leagues and Negro leagues, dating back to the late 19th century, plus a few of today's biggest stars. From there, we asked dozens of ESPN editors and writers to contribute to a balloting system that pits players from their list against each other in head-to-head voting. The question we posed, based on a combination of career value and peak performance, which player would you rank higher? Would you choose Barry Bonds or Ted Williams, Mike Trout or Joe DiMaggio, Walter Johnson or Roger Clemens? Participants voted more than 20,000 times. Our number one overall player, for example, was chosen 99% of the time. Our number 100 player, he was taken 31% of the time. Competition was fierce. Single percentage point could raise or lower a player's rating immensely. Yeah, so let me do top 10. Number 10 is Stan Musial. Number 9, Walter Johnson. Number 8, Barry Bonds. Number 7, Mickey Mantle. Number 6, Lou Gehrig. Number 5, Ted Williams. Number 4, Ty Cobb. Number 3, Hank Aaron. Number 2, Willie Mays. And number 1 is Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth looks like a Domino's delivery pizza man or a manager of a Domino's or a KFC who enjoys the food in the back a little bit too much. A little bit too much. That is the list, folks. You got Babe Ruth as ESPN's. This is ESPN's list. I really can't name you my top 10 players, MLB players of all time. I can't think of that. I don't know if it might be Barry Bonds. Based on what their terminology is, I'd say it'd probably either be Hank Aaron or Babe Ruth. I mean, it's got to be pretty close. And then also my favorite player, Pedro Martinez. I got to see him play a couple times. That dude was nice, really good on the Boston Red Sox. Yeah, and then I guess to kind of also move on, let us talk about this upcoming Super Bowl. I mean, this is going to be a very interesting matchup. There was something that I saw here on Odd Sharks. The preseason Super Bowl odds for the Los Angeles Rams to make the Super Bowl is plus 1,200. For the Cincinnati Bengals, it is plus 15,000 to make the Super Bowl. So if you bet the Bengals making the Super Bowl, you're winning yourself some money. I think that's, if you bet $100, you'll get an extra $15,000 on top of it. If you bet before the season, when these odds came out, that the Bengals would make the Super Bowl, you'd be pretty rich. You'd have some cheese. Odds are as February 4th. Currently, right now, Rams are 4.5 favorites. And total over under of the game is 48.5. So both of these teams are going to have to put up at least 24 each. So they're expecting this to kind of be a mid to high scoring game. I really don't think that you just look at what the Bengals are. They're a great story, but I don't know if they're a great football team, and that's kind of my worry in this game. I don't worry about either of these quarterbacks in this game. I think that it would be hard pressed to find a person who's probably more confident and more in the mode than Matthew Stafford right now. I mean, you go back to, he spent his entire career in Detroit, number 1 overall pick 5-star high school recruit, and yet he's also been great in the NFL. But he hasn't had a lot of success. I mean, he's never had a playoff win until this year. And he was always regarded as being trapped in Detroit with the Lions. They were an awful team for the past my entire life. And to see Matthew Stafford kind of come out this season and put up the numbers he's put up. I mean, Cooper Kupp, 145 receptions, almost 2,000 receiving yards, 1,947 yards, including 16 touchdowns. Just an absolutely marvelous season for Cooper Kupp. And then Matt Stafford, 4,800 yards, 41 touchdowns, 17 picks. Solid numbers. And then you got to look at the Rams defense. I mean, all year, their defensive line is going to be extremely interesting. Pretty much all the time. They're a fantastic team. Very solid team, well-rounded overall on the defensive side. Now, going into this game, Cam Akers is questionable. He's the star running back for the Rams. That would be a huge loss. Another one would be Jalen Ramsey, big-time cornerback, probably one of the best defensive players at the cornerback position in the NFL today. Certainly the best on the Rams roster. He is questionable as well. So that should be definitely something to look at currently. And you kind of look at the defense for the Rams. I mean, their rush defense, their defensive line is insane, allowing 54 yards a game compared to the Bengals, who allow 127 on average. And these two teams look to be some of the best in the league that we have today. I mean, you have Zach Taylor for the Bengals and Joe Burrow, two super young guys. This is basically Joe Burrow's rookie season after he got injured last year, played a couple games. This kind of feels like one of those, okay, this is going to be interesting games because of the fact that you have two extremely unproven players at quarterback. I mean, you have the OBJ story out at wide receiver, brought over to the team pretty much up to this point in his career. He's just, I mean, he's been looking real good. But that's currently the upcoming match for the Super Bowl. It's going to be in Inglewood, California. It's going to be actually a home game for the Los Angeles Rams. And let me see this. It's going to be 72 degrees. Sounds nice. It's going to be at 6:30. There was something else where you could see the ticket prices. Ticket prices as low as $4,397. That's a lot of cheese. Whole lot of cheese, man. And now, one other thing that I wanted to talk about. Let me see. I've been watching a lot of Pat McAfee show to get a lot of my information. So bear with me as I try and read this on the in my notes. For those on video, I apologize. For those listening, keep listening. So the 2020 Aaron Rodgers was a staple on the Pat McAfee show. There's definitely some teams that are open to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, recently it came out, was reported that the Tennessee Titans are not interested in Aaron Rodgers. They're excited and happy to be with Ryan Tannehill currently. Another team that I see right on this graphic is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Definitely a very intriguing. They have, I believe, the 19th pick in the NFL draft. And there has been some talk, at least on the Pat McAfee show. That's pretty much where I've been watching most of the Aaron Rodgers interviews. In the majority of those, they ask him about the Steelers. So there's somebody on the show who is a Steelers fan. So they ask him, what do you think about the Steelers? What do you think about Mike Tomlin? What do you think about the city? All this kind of stuff. And that'd be really cool to see Aaron Rodgers come here and possibly go watch him at a game. And then also another team is the Indianapolis Colts. That would be a very interesting quarterback situation. They already have Carson Wentz. Would they release him? Carson Wentz really hasn't worked out for the Colts. Came over from the Eagles, has had a bunch of injuries in his careers, especially to his ACL. And he just doesn't seem to be the same after those first couple of years in the league. And another team that he is reported to possibly sign with is the Denver Broncos. Their recent head coach hire was a former coach with the Green Bay Packers as well. So that's possibly one of the reasons why there is kind of chit chat about Aaron Rodgers possibly going there. But if a new team acquires Aaron Rodgers via trade, there will be a 1-year contract of $27.5 million with a cap hit of $27.5 million for Aaron Rodgers. And then in terms of the dead cap for the Packers, if he is before the dead cap, before June 1st, 2022, they have 26.8. If after June 1st, 2022, it would be 26.8 as well. But if after 2023, 7.6 million. So with that being said, they can't really release Aaron Rodgers. They would maybe trade him. They would have to take on a lot of money, and the Packers are not really rolling in the dough currently right now. They're probably, I think, the second. They're the team with the second least amount of cap space, so the ability to sign other players. That's never a good sign. You never want to see that. But what do I think happens with Aaron Rodgers? Personally, I think Aaron Rodgers stays another year in Green Bay. They get Devontae Adams, who's a free agent. He gets signed. They continue onwards. I don't think the Packers, in their certain salary cap struggles, are going to want to trade Aaron. I would be surprised. I don't know if shocked would be the thing, because there's definitely a lot of friction. And I feel like Aaron would want to go to possibly a new environment to see if he could kind of win now, kind of a la Matthew Stafford. Maybe he wants to get out of the NFC, maybe go over to the AFC where he might have a different path. Yeah, you would probably have to face Patrick Mahomes, maybe even Joe Burrow now. Who knows? But yeah, I really don't know. I mean, you had Tom Brady leaving in the NFC. That takes out a huge player in the NFC. Opens up a lot for other quarterbacks. Maybe he wants to try and run it back one more year. The Rams going to be the same team next year? Not sure. 49ers going to make it this far next year? Not sure. Not sure, man. But we will see that. I do want to give my prediction for the upcoming Super Bowl, and I do think I will be doing a live stream for the Super Bowl. I think I'm going to watch the whole game and kind of live stream it and do like live reactions with food and all that kind of stuff. Once again, folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I promise one of these days, it's going to be really interesting. One of the things I definitely want to do is I want to sit down with people and kind of just talk to them and just hang out. I just haven't been able to find anybody who wants to sit down and do a podcast for an hour with me. I mean, it's not doing them too much good to do it with me. I'm not super popular. Not going to really boost your brand, if you know what I mean. And but hopefully that's something I get to do in the future. I would be definitely looking forward to doing that if that were to happen. but in the future it will happen. It's going to. I'm going to keep asking. Somebody's going to say yes eventually, and then next thing you know, there'll be somebody else on the podcast. But for those who are watching currently right now, at a later time, or they're watching in years in the future to look back, or if it's even you, Zach, looking back in future years, what's up? How you doing? How's the family? But for those currently listening, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to just me diatribe my thoughts out, talking about just random stuff all over the place. More articles to come out on my Patreon as well. I'm going to start writing some things outside the realm of just Steelers, more sports related stuff. But thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you want to, you can like, share, subscribe, whatever, notifications, all that kind of stuff. Or if you don't want to, that's fine. Just listen for free. Appreciate you guys giving me a reason to come out and talk about whatever I want. It's a good platform, and it's a good time for me because I tend to not really have these long, drawn-out conversations with a lot of people. Probably only my wife. And I like to do this. It's very fun to just kind of sit down and just, especially with another person, to sit down and just kind of hash out ideas, talk about hopes and dreams and likes, dislikes, all that kind of stuff. But thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you for subscribing, liking, all that kind of stuff. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day or your night. Thank you so much. This is the Zach Moore Podcast. Peace out.